So one of the questions I'm asked the most is, what is the difference between learning and studying? And the first thing I would say is that we get really hung up on which is which mode. And I say it to my students all the time. Homework is not the same as studying. Studying is not the same as checking. Checking is not the same as evaluating. We've actually got a lot of terms for the skills. The first thing I think is really important as we look at this learning and studying kind of pattern is, can you identify the problem you're trying to solve? And if you just take 1 minute and say, where are my stumbling blocks? Do I listen really well in class, but feel like nothing goes in my head? That has a technique. Do I feel like I've got everything under control? Then I walk in the room and I don't remember anything. That has a technique. Do I feel like I rock up into each new school year, but I don't remember past content? That has a technique. And do I feel like I'm understanding what's going on, but I can't put it in my own words? I have to stay with the script that I've been given and rote learn. Well, that has a technique too. And so I think the number one thing is to actually evaluate with yourself, what is it that is a stumbling block for me? And let's just use an example. If you feel like you're listening in class and paying a lot of attention and then nothing goes in, you're not actively encoding anything. You're doing what you're told. You're being a good kid, but you're not in your own learning. So that means while you're learning something, you can't just take notes or use PowerPoint slides. You need to be questioning, is that like this? I remember I've seen this before. I don't know what that word is. Quickly Google the word and put in a word that makes sense to you. You need to get in the classroom. If you go into an exam and you feel like you don't really know what the content was that you were supposed to be remembering, that means that you actually haven't practiced drawing it back. It probably means you study with way too many resources and we're never actually practicing, where did I file this information and how do I bring it back? So one of the first things you need to look at when you're learning and you're studying, typically learning is about the active encoding, how it goes in. Studying is usually about checking it's there, refining and fixing. We then have a third category called recalling, and that has its own technique too. I actually have a very simple formula for effective study techniques, and I think it works across whether you're someone in a workplace having to put together a presentation or a student sitting an exam. I think that all effective study routines start with blank paper. We're so fixated on great resources, printing off last year's paper, looking at PowerPoint slides and notes. It's just stuff, guys. Start with a blank piece of paper. Get a dot point or a lesson planner, whatever it is that you're being given your content on, and say, what do I know on that topic? 5 minutes, write. Can you define it? Can you link it? Do you know where it is in a flowchart? What do you know about? 5 minutes, write. At the end of that 5 minutes, you'll then have a body of things that you know, and you'll also be able to say, what didn't spring to mind? Flick, 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 go back to notes, go back to videos, go back to what it is. Oh, why didn't that spring to mind? I know it, I just didn't do it properly. Now, starting with blank slates means that you don't need anything to get started. It's a procrastination buster. Bang, blank paper, go. So the first thing in study routines is work out what I do and don't know. Don't spend time on things that I do know, making myself feel good. Work out where the blanks are. The second part of a really effective study technique is that you have to then put yourself in the brain of a teacher. Predictive questioning. So if I've got some content, how could it be asked? Why did this occur? How are these two things similar? How do we know what we know? Where in the brain is it located? Who are the founding thought leaders in this area that led to this, political way of thinking? It doesn't matter what it is, but change gears and say what could be asked. Again, you don't need to be able to answer one of those questions, but you're starting to engage with your content at a level that up levels more than just remember, and starts to pose, how may this be asked? Now that generates a whole group of questions that you can start to play with as well. The third piece of that effective study technique is you're going to do some practice questions along the journey. Your job is actually not to answer the questions, it's to improve your answers every time you do it. I can't tell you the number of people that do paper on paper on paper, and students hand me 5 papers to mark, and I'm like, I'm not marking that. And they're like, why? And I said, because I haven't marked the first one to tell you what's wrong with it to fix in the second. So paper 2, 3, 4, and 5 are a waste of your time and mine. Do the paper, work out where you need to improve, Fix your language, fix your detail, fix your examples, go again. And so these 3 steps of blank paper, predict and question, language refining hits really different priorities in a study pattern, but actually allows everyone to be successful in growth and development, not just in knowledge. The number one thing students do wrong in a study routine is use resources. It's a comfort blanket. Yeah. I'll just study with my notes open. I'll just study with my slides open. I'll just study with a friend in the background. No. Enjoy those things. You have fun. And you can do those things at times, but you're not studying. You're checking. You're getting security. You're affirming. You're not building. And so I believe there's a time for resources, but there should be a lot more time without them. And so I'm anti rewriting notes. I'm anti rereading notes. I'm anti all those things. They are so comforting. They are not effective. I think you need both. Have no resources, consult resources, go again. One of the things that I think about humans, which are like Lessons in Life by KK, is that we are very quick to give up on ourselves. And so if something doesn't spring to mind, we start to doubt our memory. If we get 2 things confused, we feel like we didn't really understand it. If we can't be bothered studying or we're feeling like we're full, we think we've hit a limit. And I wish all humans knew how brilliant they were. All of those things are signs of different things. Getting 2 things confused, you've actually got a great memory. You just didn't file it right. Feeling like you're full is actually just showing you that the things you're processing are needing more time. Give your brain the space. And so the one thing that, I think is really important in my fun psych fact is that generally we all have the same memory ability as humans. We encode and process differently. So don't give up on yourself. Instead, think about the signals your body's sending you, and then think about how you harness your fabulous abilities to do what you do best. Signs of burnout. And as soon as you say that to me, I just picture a whole lot of students from my past like, we skin them, like this urgency. Oh, she just said this, like this sort of this panic that it can exist. And you need a lot of reassurance to complete a simple task. I think there's that end of burnout where you become not so sure that you can take on more information, so you look to others to help you. I think that's a sign. I think the other sign, the other end of the spectrum, is the other sign that exists, which is that lethargy or lack of engagement or motivation. So I think that the things to remember are burnout is not being tired. Burnout is not being overwhelmed. They are things of us needing to get more form and structure in study techniques. Or they could be a sign of ineffective study techniques. You study for long periods of time, but nothing goes in. The things that I get really concerned about is when people try to hand it over to me to do it. You do it. You show me. Let me sit with you. That's not a great sign. On the other side, what's the point? What can we do? So make sure my number one thing, if we suspect something is burnout, is just sit down and make a new to-do list. Block out your next 3 days and what you need to do and execute for 3 days. If you can execute for 3 days, that's great. If you're having trouble with executing, even over a couple of days, that's when you should reach out for help.